Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. On this episode, we're talking about how to build brave workplaces. We're honored to have with us someone who helps entrepreneurs and business leaders grow and scale their companies through healthy teams. We're talking with Zach Montroy, the Changemaker, the founder and CEO of The Intention Collective. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today, Jeremy. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. Excited to chat with you.
Absolutely. So we're definitely going to talk about all the amazing things you do. But let's start, because the fun of the Changemakers podcast is we get to know you personally and then we talk about professionally. So give us a little bit of just your childhood, where you grew up.
Yeah, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We actually moved there when I was 10 years old. So I feel like most of my growing up was in Pittsburgh. My dad was a pastor. My mom worked in the medical profession. So we actually grew up right in the city. We were sort of stationed right sort of close to downtown, and that really formed a lot of my early relationships, going to public school in the inner city sort of school system. We had some just great experiences. I sort of at 14, 15, decided I needed to go to work. We had a pretty lower middle class upbringing. And so I knew if I wanted to go to college, I was going to have to start saving money for it. And that led me to my first job. And it's kind of an interesting experience. I was working at KB Toy Stores. If you remember those like clutter-filled toy stores in the mall. I went there like 14 and a half with my work permit and, all ready to like start the working world, getting paid like $5 an hour or something like that. And ended up being a manager at KB Toys by my senior year of high school. Only had like one class to take. I'd finished all my other requirements like every good nerd does. And that was sort of my first entry point into leadership. Had no idea what I was doing. And unfortunately, the way that we were taught leadership, they were like, here's some VHS tapes for you to watch. And after you watch these VHS tapes, like you are going to be equipped to be a leader. And so learned pretty quickly that did not equip me to be a good leader. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, just, as a 17-year-old, I'm like, these people who gave me this position should really be questioning their decision-making abilities. But went to college, then ended up working for some really great leaders, some really bad leaders, and I ended up with a marketing degree, but then really loving the people side of work, and so moved into HR and then leading operations for a number of different organizations, but had some just amazing mentors along the way who spoke into me, built into me as a leader, told me the hard stuff, held me to my integrity, and that really, I think, positioned a calling on my life to be able to do that with other teams and other companies, and is what led me to stepping into consulting a number of years ago.
I think that's kind of the beauty, though, is that, especially in your world where you've experienced the good, but you've experienced the bad, and, you've learned the hard way and you've had successes, like that allows you to step in and say, okay, I've been through all this and I can tell you like the good and the bad, the ugly and the good, all that kind of stuff to really help. And so going back though with your parents, especially with your father and mother, I think in both of their worlds, very caring about people, caring about community. Was that always, in terms of like having a higher purpose and really caring about others, was that always something that you kind of saw with them and growing up with your family?
Yeah, and I would say too, I had just this amazing privilege of an opportunity of having a great community even around our family. So I think, yeah, there were some, obviously great things that were modeled in our household, but also I got to see that from a lot of other adults. And, being a dad of a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old, one of the things that my wife and I have talked about quite frequently is, we need to be really intentional about the adults and community that we are surrounding our kids with. Because, I mean, you don't go to your parents for everything, especially as a teenager. You're like, they don't know anything, right? From age 12 until age 20. And then you realize like, oh, maybe they did know some things. But yeah, that value of community, that value of people, and not seeing people for what they can do or what they can give you. And I think too, seeing some really great leaders modeled to me through our church community, through just our friend community, and really seeing this idea of like leadership can be command and control. And that's really unhealthy and that's really toxic in organizations. Or leadership can be about service to other people. And really getting to see that dichotomy, I think, lived out early, even early on, was so helpful in my formation, in hopefully getting to model serving other people through leadership.
We'll definitely dive into the Intention Collective right after this, but share a little bit about your family right now, because you kind of alluded to it, but share a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so my wife, Jackie, and I have been married for a number of years. We got married when we were both working in Chicago. Jackie's a clinical therapist and actually works on our team. We do coaching with teams and individuals. She also has a private practice that she runs. And we have three boys, all adopted. Nazir, our oldest, is 10. Amir is 9, and Sammy, who runs our house, he's 6. So he is definitely the baby and gets his way most of the time. So
We'll come back to some of those pieces because I think there's a lot of cool elements when you talk about, family and faith and blending in work and harmony and all these things that just are a big part when you talk about HR and the dynamics that we live in today about, working remote. You mentioned command and control, like all these different leadership styles, HR styles, complexities, all of that factors in not only with the others and that you're working with, but also obviously with your own family. And so we'll come back to that in a second, but talk about the Intention Collective.
sure. We are a team. We're actually placed all over the country. We've got some team members in other cities. A few of us are here in the Nashville area, but we really focus on helping grow and scale healthy organizations. So we go in and help entrepreneurs figure out what is it that they want to grow their business to? Why do they want to grow their business to that? Helping them really understand what can they be best in the world at. But more than that, how do they build a very purpose-filled and purpose-forward organization? How do they make sure that they're treating their people well, that this is holistically a great place to work? Because we know when we can tie people's unique ability and their unique genius to the overall vision of the organization, like that's where the power of, good profits and good growth, but also people who love the work that they do comes from. So we do that. We do a lot of leadership coaching. We do workshops and sort of team building, things like that. We just launched what we call Coaching for All, which is sort of a fractionalized, we have some trained therapists on our staff and obviously professional coaches. So companies are making that available to their entire teams, not just their executives. And then we just launched a school side. We have intentional schools as well, where we do a lot of that work, professional development inside of schools. And really that's sort of a giving back part of our business to really help grow and build healthy schools and healthy environments for kids, and hopefully giving them an orientation towards what they can be, what they can do, how they can make a difference in their worlds.
When you look at kind of the first steps and where you like to start, what are some of the questions? Because obviously different from a school to an entrepreneur, right? Like in terms of where their challenges are, the opportunities, where you want to start. So when you're sitting down, what are the questions you like to ask? What are the things you're looking for? Where do you like to start with getting a pulse of how you're going to build out your plan for success?
Yeah, we'll talk about the collective side to not confuse everyone. Though we really, both of those sides of the business we keep pretty separate because it is very different. When we're working with a company or with a team, we really step in and say, where are you at? Where do you want to be? What's your goal? What's your hope? What's your dream for your company, for your business? Where do you want to be 5 years from now? What have you found are the things that are keeping you from getting there? How many days off a year are you taking? How healthy are you as a leader? How healthy is the leadership orientation, or the leader team within your organization? Do people understand their roles and responsibilities? We actually do, whenever we go in and start working with a company, if you've ever taken a 360 assessment on yourself, which can be a really humbling experience, we actually do that for businesses. We have sort of this 360 that we've designed. We come in and we'll run this 360 on the organization, on the leadership team, and we look at their change capacity. We look at their change orientation. We look at, how does the team see the business? If, the team were a person, what persona does the business have? And, we see massive points of conflict sometimes in those in that 360. And that what that ends up helping us do is say, okay, well, here's your vision as a leader. Here's the orientation that your team has towards change. Here's how your leadership team, here's how your, team on the ground is really seeing the business. And then we come in and help assess operational maturity as well. So we have some different components that we look at with people and money and capacity. And that what that really does is, as a consultant, when you've worked with a company for like a year or a year and a half, you really know them. You know sort of all the good, the bad, the ugly, all the things, all the people. It really helps us see that on day one. And gives us really it's sort of like if you were to go to the doctor and for your physical, they've like already run all your blood work, did a full, body MRI, sort of these like holistic health places now, these executive health places that are doing all these screenings. You get to go in and say like, okay, here's reality. What do we do? What are the problems? What are the things that we need to look at and work on? And so that helps us create a plan to help them get what they want out of their business. It helps us know where to step in with them. We don't have a secret plan for their business. We help them create that plan, and then we help step in and operationalize that plan with them.
Talk about the dynamics, because obviously you have to have the leadership invested and then it permeates throughout. But when you talk about, people being, creature comforts, or they get comfortable in a situation, and so command and control, and then all of a sudden to create a brave workplace, they've got to be vulnerable and authentic. And so how do you start to reframe those habits and start pulling them in the right direction? Share a little bit of kind of that piece of it tied to a brave workplace and what that means versus a toxic workplace.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer is always a different level of nuance with any organization. There's this great book that was really life-changing for me that I read a number of years ago. It's Immunity to Change by Lisa Leahy and Robert Keegan. And in grad school, like we went through all these case studies of organizational change and why organizational change doesn't, end up happening, and all the, and it really comes down to, for all of us, we all have some level of immunity to change. Like we are, wired to feel safe. Change doesn't feel safe. Change always threatens some way of doing or being or whatever. And in Dare to Lead, the researchers who were helping Brene Brown with that project found that the biggest fear in the workplace is the fear of irrelevance. So when you think about this idea of, okay, we're trying to drive change, we're trying to innovate here, and then we're coming up against this fear that all of us have of like, my skills aren't needed, I'm no longer relevant, I'm too old, to whatever, to learn this new thing, like we start to resist change. And we start to say like, well, the way we did things was the bet we get stuck in nostalgia, right? And so really to walk through, okay, what are we trying to do here? Why are we trying to make this change? What's sort of in it for us? What's in it for the organization? What are the behaviors? And Dr. Leahy and Dr. Keegan really walk through this amazing model to help organizations think through this. But like, what are the behaviors that we are currently doing that counteract the change that we're trying to see here? what are the hidden beliefs, the hidden assumptions, the hidden behaviors that if we don't confront, it's going to derail this. And then how do we start to test the theory of what this change might do for us? And how do we test the theory of the, okay, if we have this hidden assumption, let's test the assumption and let's see what happens. And this really correlates to Brené's work and like the SFD, the stormy first draft. The story that we tell ourselves that really highlights our fear and inadequacies. So when we're going in and helping to help transform a culture, help transform a team, help really focus on where are we trying to go, what do we need to change and do to get there, we have to look at all of that because we bring all of who we are into work. We bring those fears and inadequacies, we bring that immunity to change to the workplace. And if we're not if we're not helping to work through those fears and feelings, we're going to deal with an inordinate amount of unproductive and ineffective behavior on the other side of that.
How do you differentiate the toxic workplace versus a brave workplace?
Yeah, to simply put it, I would say, and I'm stealing this from Brené's work. I would say a brave workplace is a workplace that, we could characterize as psychological safety. And I think the best definition of psychological safety is where vulnerability is rewarded, or as Brené would put it, where armor or self-protection is not needed or rewarded, right? Like, I don't need you to self-protect. I don't need you to feel like you're unsafe. I am instead going to create an environment where interpersonal risk is the norm, where we're going to reward vulnerability, not punish it. I'm not going to use that against you. And I think, too, I always go back to Patrick Lencioni's 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, where we have vulnerability-based trust with one another. I can trust you, you trust me. We can have healthy conflict. We debate on ideas. There's not interpersonal drama or back channeling or shame showing up. We're committed. We're in it with one another. I'm committed to getting it right, not being right. We can hold one another accountable. We do what we say we're going to do. And we're seeing results. We're seeing effectiveness in whatever it is that we're called to do. I think those are the characteristics of a healthy workplace. Um, did you ask me the characteristics of a bad work or a toxic workplace too? I don't want to jump into that question if you didn't ask that
You
question,
can. I
Jeremy.
just
I'm
said,
like,
how do you
I could just
differentiate the two?
grandstand here for 20 minutes.
I did. It's fair because how do you differentiate? Because I think for
Yeah.
some people, they can think that they have a brave workplace when everybody else is like back to the 360 is like, oh, this is toxic. So it's like, how
Yeah.
do you differentiate the two?
Yeah, I would say the characteristics of a toxic workplace, we're not having conversations with people, we're having conversations about people. So we see back channeling happening, the blaming and finger pointing, comparison, not healthy competition, but oh, Jeremy, have you seen how, Gina is performing? Oh, Gina's so much better and Gina does all these things right. You should be more like Gina. Or discrimination, favoritism, gossiping. We see self-worth being tied to your productivity, passive aggressiveness, sarcasm. I mean, all of those, I think, are signs of a toxic workplace. And, we see cultures that get stuck in setbacks. They're not having tough conversations. Perfectionism is, running rampant in the organization. No one really understands how to live out our core values that we have. We don't have, innovation, and we are, really like using shame and blame as management tools. I mean, like that, I would say those are the two sides of the continuum, or that sort of healthiness in the workplace, the behavioral styles I think that we tend to see a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think in one you're uplifting, you're collaborative, you're vulnerable, and then the other one, like you're saying, you're shaming, and it's more of the ordering, and you've got all the gossip and all the issues. And so
Mhm.
I think seeing it, understanding it, that obviously gives people an idea of, okay, where am I in this picture? Talk about some things that have your attention right now, because I think there's a lot of trends, leadership, HR, all these different areas, where you're stepping in, and, work-life balance, work-life harmony. Some talking about vacation, and now the trend of unlimited vacation, but you're seeing all the playful videos on social media where it's like, well, now you have unlimited vacation, but you have to have it approved. And so it might not really be unlimited, right? And so,
Yeah.
um, there's a lot of dynamics in the work from home, all of that plays in. Good or bad, what are some of the things that have your attention from a leadership perspective, especially when it comes to creating success?
Yeah, and you talked through a lot of those different trends that we're seeing are like the hot topics right now. And oftentimes, we see those and we think about them, and underneath them, though, they can all be good things and they can all be really harmful things. It really depends on the orientation of, how vulnerable are we? How much do we trust one another? Because I mean, we've seen companies that have said like, oh, we're going to have unlimited vacation, but people have to get it approved and you can't have more than a week off. Well, that's not really unlimited vacation. You're just using that as a way to recruit people and trick them into a job. We've also seen crazy things like, we're gonna let everyone work from home, but I'm gonna secretly install software on their computer so that I can see how much they're actually working, because I don't actually trust that people are working. Well, that is not trust. That is, I would say that is like Big Brother monitoring. Um, so if we can't trust our team, then certainly like these benefits that we're trying to give people are really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just trickery or a bait and switch kind of thing. Because I mean, if you found out that your employer is tracking your every move on your computer, I think you'd, oh, they certainly don't trust me to do my job. And then we see, organizations where like, yeah, okay, unlimited vacation. And at the same time, we're really clear on what we need from you. We are really clear on what's your role, what you're held accountable to, what you have the authority to do and the autonomy to do. I love Dan Sullivan's book, Who Not How. Hire the right people. Spend a lot of time in the hiring process. Be really clear about your values, what's okay, what's not okay. Be really clear on what we're focused on, and let people figure out how to do the work. Like give them some freedom in their job. One of my teammates was teaching yesterday, and she recited this quote, and oh man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Unclear expectations are simply premeditated, basically premeditated resentment. And I thought that is so powerful. So often we are not clear on expectations. And all we're doing is like premeditating resentment towards that person in the future. So like any of these trends, unlimited, all these extra benefits, like if you're using them as a guise to try to get past the fact that no one trusts anyone in your workplace, you have much bigger work to do.
Give me a tip around accountability, and it could be accountability for yourself or it could be accountability for your team.
Yeah, I mean, I think accountability, most, simply put, is we do what we say we're going to do. Um, I hold myself accountable, you hold yourself accountable, and we're okay having those conversations. We're clear, we're kind with one another. I think the best kind of accountability is peer-to-peer accountability. Where we're really clear in what we're committing to, what we expect of one another, and Jeremy, if you say you're going to do something and you end up not doing it, then I can say what happened, what's going on, where might you need support, but by you not doing that, here are the consequences. And I'm not giving you an interpersonal attack here. but at the same time, we're a team, we're reliant on one another. But I think most leaders are adverse to holding team members accountable. And then, as a team member, I'm not going to do your dirty work for you if you're not willing as my boss to do it. Culture always defaults to the worst behavior we allow. It always defaults to the worst behaviors we allow. So if I, as a leader, am not holding you accountable and you're on my team, I can't imagine someone else on the team is going to do that for me. And then as a teammate, the other teammates are like, well, if he's not going to be held accountable, why should I do the extra work? Why should I pick up the slack? Why should I be giving my 100% to this?
And I think that's a great sports analogy too, is the best coaches hold the team, the players accountable, but the players hold each other accountable too. And you
Right.
always heard that a lot with Kobe Bryant, where he was holding his teammates just as accountable. He held himself to high standards, but he
Mm-hmm.
also too held his teammates to high standards. And I think that plays out obviously in the business context just as much like you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's incredibly important, and it's incredibly important that we're resourcing one another and our teams to be able to have that kind of clarity with one another.
How do you focus on the harmony? So balancing all this, and especially when you talk about pouring in and helping other companies, entrepreneurs, business leaders, it's a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice. And in many cases, you're meeting them on their time schedules and such. And so, how do you balance for you and your wife and your family? How do you balance the Intention Collective with your own family?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one that we are constantly learning, and that we just have had to have the commitment to be in constant conversation of, we do a lot of quarterly planning and a lot of annual planning. So end of quarters, beginning of quarters is always like a busy time. But for Jackie and I to just be very intentional about, okay, hey, these weeks are coming up, these things are coming up. What do you have? What do I have? What do the kids have? That's been a really key piece to us in sort of keeping everything, being able to prioritize the right things. I hate using the word balance because I don't think that that really exists for us. But like Jackie and I talk every week about what does the week upcoming look like. We, use some of the same tools like, hey, the story I tell myself when you come home and pull out your computer is that the family is not important. How do we work through that? How do we talk through that? Again, like we have to practice what we preach. And for us, it's just trying to be very intentional about time, very intentional about boundaries. I try not to work at night, try not to work before the kids go to bed. We try to be very intentional, like weekends are free from work as much as possible, just because, our priority is first to be, good in our relationship with one another and to be good parents and engaged parents. And so that has to come before work.
Yeah, I'm like you. I typically say harmony because to your point, like it's hard to have balance. Like no such thing in this
Right.
world. What's something that you've learned from your wife? So what's something that you've kind of learned from her that's made you a better person, personally, professionally, spiritually? But what's something you've learned from her?
Yeah, I think Jackie is first one of the most empathetic people on the planet. And I think just deep empathy for others, deep recognition that people on the whole are doing the best that they can, to not be judgmental. She is a great listener. She's a great conversationalist. And I think one of the big skills she's taught me is to be comfortable with silence. When we're facilitating, when I'm coaching, I mean, that's a tool I use commonly. Like, I shouldn't just be waiting for my turn to talk. I need to be curious and ask really good questions, and then let's sit in that and think about it and reflect and be mindful. She's amazingly gifted at those things.
What about from your kids? How has that dynamic made you a better person, made you a stronger family?
Yeah, I'm a pretty rigid, like, okay, this is the plan. Let's work the plan. And I think our oldest son is very spontaneous. He loves learning. He loves learning facts. And he really loves looking at problems from like a whole 360 perspective. And I think that that's he's so curious, and I really value that. And he's taught me a lot there. Our middle son he's much like my wife. He's a very good listener. He just deeply loves people and deeply cares for people. And our youngest son, everything is a game, and like don't take things so seriously. Like, let's just like, we're here to have fun. Like that's probably his mantra in life. And like that's I think those are kind of the specific learnings I've had from all three of them.
What are some of the things that you, and it could be the Intention Collective or as a family, when you talk about a higher purpose, community engagement, giving back, making a difference, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, first of all, as a company and as an organization, it's very, very important to us. We give back about 10% of our revenue as an organization every year to different causes and things that that are very near and dear to our heart. So for us, that's looked like racial inequities, really working in that space. My wife helped start an organization called Reimagine Nashville, where she got a group of friends together to give money every month. And that money just goes in a pot, and then they vote on a different nonprofit that is working to solve the issues that systemic racism has caused in our community, and they give back to those nonprofits that tend to be really underfunded. So we do a lot of giving and work there. Our kids attend a school in Franklin that is um, really devoted to very intentional racial diversity and socioeconomic diversity. And so that means like 60% of the kids are on free and reduced scholarships. And so we've done a lot of work, giving back the work that we do with organizations, and obviously working to support their mission. Those are things that are just very near to our heart. And, we let our kids be a part of, our giving as well. They give to Reimagine Nashville. We let them help us on our vote that we get to make each quarter on that as well, to really help them understand that, as a human, we're here for a higher purpose, and we're here to give back and to, be all in with our community around us.
When you look at tying that into the Intention Collective and working with other businesses and organizations and helping them find their higher purpose, their due north, share a little bit of what that's like.
Yeah, it looks different for different organizations, right? And I think for, you know, every one of the teams that we work with, we don't work with companies who are just like, I want to, grow this thing as fast as I can, as quick as I can, so that I can sell it and have an 8-figure exit. We're like, great, have the best time doing that. That's not really what we're called to do. Because I think for us, it is, where are you giving back? How are you affecting your community? I think really, really importantly, how are you affecting the people who've been entrusted to your care? How are you treating your team and your organization? And so really helping them figure out what are you best in the world at? What are you uniquely positioned to do? What drives your business? But where are you trying to take this, and what's in it for your team? How are you serving them in the work that they're doing? It's interesting. And I was just reading this study from, I think it was from Harvard, but they were saying that one of the best ways to drive employee engagement is giving them time on a regular basis to go serve their community by volunteering. So, you kind of think about like all the money that's been spent on employee engagement initiatives. One of the best things you can do is actually just give your employees time and agency on who they want to go help and support, and let them go do that work in their communities. which I think is like, I think a lot of us have known that maybe for a lot of years, but to like have some good validated empirical research on our side is also really, really helpful. So yeah, that's sort of the coaching and work that we've been trying to do with companies.
And I think that's extremely important is that the nonprofits, the social impact organizations, they need volunteers. And they, yes, the corporate outing of 100 people going and serving together as a team building thing, that's great, but they need regular,
Hmm.
sustainable opportunities of small groups coming out on a weekly basis or a daily basis. And so there's a huge need for, board engagement, volunteerism, all the physical engagement. And the best place is with an army of employees who have this huge potential to go and create this positive change. And just like you
For
said,
sure.
they want a higher purpose. They want to know that they are making a difference, in their job, yes, but really in their community. And I think that's the thing is it goes back to, your greatest fear, like you mentioned, the irrelevance, right? Like you want
Hmm.
to feel needed, you want to feel relevant, but you want to feel like you can be a change maker. You want to be able to feel
Right.
like you can make a change in someone else's life. And I think that's where it's a huge opportunity, just like you're saying, to reap the reward on all sides, where your employees are happier and more productive, they're engaged, they're giving back, the nonprofits win, the community wins. Like it's a win for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
To your point, recognizing that as an opportunity and then taking advantage of it, that's the whole key to success.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
let's go ahead and switch over. We'll do a fun lightning round as an opportunity just to get to know you better. Short questions, short answers, and then we'll wrap up with how to carry the conversation forward. But what's something you like to do to relax?
I enjoy musical theater. I love going to shows, and luckily we've got a couple of our boys love doing that too. So it's like a good bonding time as well. So that, and then just being outside. Our family loves hiking, and luckily, we moved down here from Chicago a number of years ago. So more of the year we get to be outside, which we love.
What sort of music is more of your favorite? Because obviously you probably like a lot, but give us a couple of
Yeah,
favorite bands.
I yeah, I really am. We're pretty broad. Like our kids have a good repertoire going on of like songs. We feel very proud of that as parents. But like a good Broadway musical, I'm always up for it. So if anything that comes to town, we're signed up and ready and going there.
What's a favorite vacation spot for your family?
Yeah, we are I would say we always go up to we rent a lake house in Michigan every summer. My wife is from mid-Michigan, and just being up north, being on a lake, being on the water in the summertime is like just the relaxation that brings, and like being on the lake is definitely a favorite for our family.
When someone comes to visit the Nashville area from out of town, what are some favorite places you like to take them?
We will not take them to Lower Broadway. We will send them there on their own. But if Nashville Soccer Club's in season, we are always up for a game there. And we love trying new restaurants. So we just are constantly like looking up what's new, what haven't we tried. We love just kind of traveling around the area to do that. We also love just the parks here as well. Radnor Lake is a big favorite of ours to walk around and hike as a family. So those are kind of the big things on our to-do list when people are in town.
What's a fun date night?
Yeah, we're definitely a go try a new restaurant. We have a couple of them that we love in the Franklin area, but we're definitely like a go try a new restaurant, go for a walk, just spend time together, a couple.
What's a recent, you've mentioned quite a few books throughout the interview, but what's another recent book that you've read that you feel like would be a good one to highlight?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of Optimal right now. That's a new Daniel Goleman book that he is kind of looking at the latest research on the intersection of emotional intelligence, leadership, and good work. And so that's a really great book that I'm sort of midstream in. And then I can't remember who wrote this book, but it's How to Know a Person. And it really is how do we, with curiosity, really get to know someone so that they feel seen and heard and can be wholehearted in relationships. So I'm like mid both of those books right now, and they're really good.
Any sort of aha moments out of those recent books, or you're like, never thought of that, or wow, that's a good one that I can kind of apply. Any aha moments?
Yeah, I mean, the Daniel Goleman's work always kicks my butt. And I think just this idea of emotional intelligence is a practice. It's not an arrival point. It is sort of the constant choice, moment by moment, of making sure that you're in tune and aware and mindful. And so he really kind of talks about this practice of mindfulness, and how important that is, but how that relates to our interactions and our leadership. And so I think that the aha there is just, this is something that is always going to require work, and is a practice skill. It's not okay, I'm gonna develop this competency and I'm great with this competency for the rest of my life. It's something that we have to continually work and build.
What's a favorite, and I shouldn't say favorite, what's a quote that inspires you, or a saying? You don't have to get it verbatim, but what's a quote or a saying that inspires you?
I'm a big Brene Brown fan, as you can probably tell at this point, but I love her definition of leadership. And that is, a leader is anyone who holds themselves responsible or sees potential in people, processes, and ideas, and then who takes on the responsibility and courage to develop that potential. And I love how accessible that makes leadership, and how intentional of a skill, again, that leadership is. So one that I use often. I also love Theodore Roosevelt's "Person in the Arena" quote. That's a longer one I won't read right now for you.
We'll make them look it up.
Right, look it up.
Yeah, exactly. Are you a wake up early and be more productive, or stay up late? I know you mentioned like I got to put everything up for the kids and not be working.
Yeah.
But do you open it back up and then kick back in?
I do mindless things after the kids go to bed because I have no mental capacity, it feels like, past 8 p.m. So I have always, even as a teenager, I was like, it's 9 p.m. I'm going to go to bed. So I'm a wake up early. Our youngest is a wake up early, so it's a really good fit for both of us. We both get up in like the 4s or 5s. And so, yeah, I'm an early morning person.
Was there any favorite toy, going back to the KB toy store? Like, I remember those in the mall. Like, that was a great
Oh,
spot.
yeah.
So was there any favorite like toy or fun memory out of that experience?
I don't know that it's a fond memory, but do you remember those singing bass? Like the
Yeah,
singing
absolutely. Yeah.
fish?
Yeah.
We had to have, like, it was a certain number, like 20 of them on display. And so like I can still viscerally remember having to hear that stupid thing sing all day long every day. And like would never go near them anymore.
Well, obviously, you're creating your legacy each and every day, many, many, many years from now. What do you hope that people say about you, the difference you were able to make as a husband, as a son, as a father, with the Intention Collective? What do you hope your legacy is?
I hope that my legacy is marked by courage and challenge, and integrity, but most of all that, people might say, Zach spent time intentionally connecting with me and investing in me and helping me understand how I can use my unique abilities and my skills, for the greater good of whatever it is that they're working. Like, that investment paid off, and I'm now able to make that investment in others.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where do we go to carry these conversations forward, to learn more about you, the Intention Collective? How do we take those next steps? Where do we go?
Absolutely. Our website, intentioncollective.co, we actually have a number of free resources on there for leaders, and have a whole resource center and some free templates and tools on there. So yeah, intentioncollective.co.
Well, Zach Montroy, you are a change maker. Thank you for everything you and your team do to make a difference, to power the good. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. It was great.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the ChangeMakers podcast, we're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.